I drove the same 81 miles of gravel and county blacktop for 22 years, and I can tell you exactly which houses turn their porch lights off at night and which ones leave them burning until morning. Settle in for this one. Get the pillow the way you want it. This is a quiet story, and it happens mostly in a right-hand drive Jeep with 190-some thousand miles on it, going about 11 miles an hour past mailboxes in the middle of Iowa. Nobody in it is a villain. There is no lawyer in it, and nobody gets what is coming to them, because nobody in it has anything coming to them except one woman who thought she was invisible and turned out to be the opposite. My name is Judy Halverson, and I carried mail on rural Route 2 out of Kettleman, Iowa, from the year I was 31 until the year I was 53. I did not plan on it. I want to be honest about that up front, because people like to make a mail route sound like a calling, and for me, it started out as insurance. My husband left in March of the year our daughter turned 4, and he did not leave in any dramatic way. He just went to Cedar Rapids for work and then stopped coming back on weekends, and after a while, the phone number changed. I had a high school diploma and a part-time job at the elevator office and a 4-year-old named Casey who was allergic to everything under the sun. The post office took the test in the basement of the Kettleman Library on a Saturday. I got a 79 on it. 9 months later, a man named Delmar Boyd retired off Route 2 after 34 years, and they gave it to me, and Delmar spent 1 week riding along in the passenger seat telling me things. He told me the Novak driveway washes out and to stay left of the culvert. He told me the dog at the third place past the grain bins is loud and will not bite you, and the friendly one at the yellow house absolutely will. He told me which mailbox posts were rotted and which families would be embarrassed if you mentioned it. He told me to keep 2 gallons of water and a coffee can of sand behind the seat all year, not just in winter. And on the last day, sitting in the parking lot with the engine running, he said the only thing that turned out to matter. He said, "You'll learn the boxes in a month. Takes about a year to learn the lights." I said I did not know what that meant. Delmar Boyd said, "You will." Here is what he meant, and it took me a good deal longer than a year. A rural route is not a delivery job. Anybody can put an envelope in a metal box. A rural route is the only job in the county where one person goes past every single house, every single day, 6 days a week, at more or less the same hour, and looks at it. Not into it, at it. And when you do that for 4 or 5 years, you stop seeing houses and you start seeing rhythm, and then, without ever deciding to, you start noticing when the rhythm breaks. The Hoffmans get their mail out of the box before noon, always, both of them, whoever is closer to the door. So on the day the flag is still up at 2:30, something has happened. Loretta Wicks puts her outgoing letters in with a rubber band around them because her hands shake and she is afraid of losing one. So on the day there is no rubber band, I look at the house a little longer. The Dooleys have 4 kids and a trampoline, and the yard looks like a yard sale that lost. So the week the yard is perfectly clean, somebody in that house is not doing well. Because in my experience, people do not tidy up out of happiness, they tidy up when they cannot sleep. And the porch lights, that is the big one, and Delmar was right that it takes a while. Most people out here shut the porch light off when they go to bed and flip it on when they get up in the dark to do chores. That means when I come by between 9 and 11 in the morning, most lights are off. A porch light burning at 10 in the morning means one of 2 things. It means somebody was up all night, or it means nobody has been out that door since yesterday evening. By my 6th or 7th year, I could drive Route 2 and tell you which was which, and I could not have explained to you how I knew. It is the same way you can tell from one word on the phone that your own mother is upset. The morning I want to tell you about was the 12th of February in my 18th year on the route, and it was 14 below zero with the wind, which out here means the air actually hurts your teeth. The place was a small white house on the corner where the gravel meets the county road, with an old iron windmill in the side yard that has not turned since before I was born. Arvid Nelson lived there. 86 years old, a widower going on 11 years, a retired seed dealer with a bad hip and a very specific personality. Arvid did not do small talk. In 18 years, he had said maybe 200 words to me, and about 40 of those were about the windmill. But Arvid Nelson got his mail out of that box every single day by 9:30 in the morning. Every day. Rain, snow, Christmas Eve, the day of his wife's funeral. He would come down the walk with a cane in one hand and the other hand out for balance, and he would take his mail and go back up, and if I was still sitting there, he would raise the mail about 4 inches in a way that was not exactly a wave. That morning, his flag was up with an outgoing letter, and the porch light was on, and it was 20 minutes past 10. I sat in the Jeep with the heater roaring, and I looked at the light. Now, I want to be fair about this, because it is easy to sound braver than I was. What I actually felt was reluctance. Arvid was a private man, and I was a mail carrier, and I had 90-some boxes left, and it was 14 below, and I had put myself in an awkward position with a man named Ordell Kuchera the previous spring for very nearly the same reason, and been wrong, and he had told the whole coffee crowd at the gas station that the mail lady thought he was dead. I got out of the Jeep anyway. I want to say it was noble. It was not. It was mostly that I knew I would think about that light all afternoon. He was on the side of the house, in the shade, on the concrete pad between the back door and the propane tank, and he had been there since some time before dawn. He had gone out to check the tank because the furnace had been cycling wrong, and he had gone down on the ice, and he had broken his hip, and he had not been able to get up or make himself heard, and the temperature that morning had gotten down to 19 below. He was alive. That is the thing about a lot of cold nights out here. He had a barn coat on, and he had managed to work one arm inside it, and he had been lying against the foundation on the south side, which is the only warm thing on that whole property, and he was gray and confused and could not tell me what month it was. I called 911 from beside him. It took the county ambulance 26 minutes to get there, and I sat on the concrete in a mail carrier's jacket with my knees up against his side, because a body will take heat off another body, and I could not think of one other useful thing to do. At some point in there, he got hold of my sleeve and he said, "Don't call Denise. Denise is his daughter in Sioux Falls," and I understood him perfectly. He was not afraid of the hospital. He was afraid of the conversation about the house. I said, "That's not my call to make, Arvid." He said, "I know it." I said, "I'll tell her you were awake and talking and giving me a hard time." And he said, "Good." They took him in, and they pinned the hip in Des Moines, and he came home in April with a woman named Rhonda coming 3 mornings a week, which he hated, and which kept him in that house for 4 more years, which he did not hate. And I never told anybody. That is the part people find strange when they hear this story, and I want to explain it because it is the whole spine of what happened later. I did not tell the coffee crowd. I did not tell my sister. I did not tell the postmaster, beyond the incident report I had to file about the time delay on the route. I told my daughter Casey once, years later, when she was grown and asked me the worst thing I had ever seen on the job. I did not keep it secret to be humble. I kept it secret because Arvid Nelson would have had to live in this county with 200 people, knowing that he lay on his own concrete in the cold, and every single one of them would have brought it up gently, the way people do, and it would have taken something from him that he was not going to get back. He got his mail out of that box himself for 4 more years. He raised it 4 inches at me. That mattered more than a story I could have told at the gas station. There were others. I am not going to make it sound like the whole route was one emergency after another, because that is not true, and most of what I did for 22 years was hand people their electric bill. But over 22 years, there were 4 times I am especially glad I paid attention. One was Arvid. Another began with 3 weeks of newspapers on a porch and a car that never moved. A young mother out on the North End needed somebody to knock, and it turned out to be postpartum depression so deep she had stopped answering the door for anyone. I called her aunt, who got inside and has hugged me in the Fairway parking lot every single time she has seen me since. One was a gas smell at the Broyles place when nobody was home, and I called the fire department on a hunch, and it turned out to be exactly what I thought it was. And one was not an emergency at all. It was a girl of about 15 at the Dooleys who started walking down to the box to meet me at the same time every day, all summer. And it took me most of that summer to understand that she was not there for the mail. She was there because she wanted to be in the presence of an adult for a few minutes who was not in her house. I never asked her one question. I told her about the route. She is grown now and works in healthcare in Ames, and she sent me a card the year she finished her program that said, on the inside, "Thanks for the 11 minutes." I have that card in a drawer. What I did not know when I put it there was that a few years later, the route would notice my own broken rhythm before I knew how to name it. The houses I had been reading all those years had been reading me, too. The good part is coming, but first I have to tell you why I disappeared from their road for 8 weeks. Now, here is the hard part, and I will not stretch it out, because if you are drifting off, I would rather you drifted off through this part than the good part. The winter of my 20th year on the route, my daughter Casey was 24 and pregnant with her first, living 40 minutes away in Marshalltown, and she started having headaches. It was a brain bleed, an aneurysm in the middle of the night at 34 weeks. They got the baby out and rushed Casey to Iowa City, and she was in a bed there for 19 days, and then she was not anymore. Her name was Casey Marie, and she was 24 years old, and I am not going to sit here and try to make it make sense, because it does not, and anybody who has lost one knows there is no arrangement of words that helps. The baby lived. Her name is Nora. She weighed 4 pounds and 11 ounces, and she came home in March to her father Ty, who was 25 and had just buried his wife, and who was a better man than anybody had any right to expect. I took 8 weeks. Then I went back to the route, because I could not be in my house, and because 81 miles of gravel at 11 miles an hour turns out to be a reasonable place to be a person who is falling apart. Nobody can see you in a Jeep. You have somewhere to be. Your hands have something to do. The route knew before I told anybody. That is not mysticism, that is a small county. It knew inside of 2 days. And what the route did about it is the reason I am telling you any of this. It started at the Hoffmans. Marilyn Hoffman was standing at her box on my first morning back, in a coat, at 9:15, in the cold, holding a foil pan with a dish towel over it. She did not say she was sorry. She said, "This is a hot dish, and it goes in at 350 for 40 minutes, and don't argue with me." Then it was Loretta Wicks with the rubber band, who was 91 that year, and who had buried 2 children of her own, and who did not come out to the box. She left me a note in with her outgoing mail. It said, "I know what this is. It does not go away, and it does get carryable. Come sit sometime." Then it was a family out on the west leg named Ozuna, who I had delivered to for 11 years and had maybe 8 conversations with. Anna Ozuna got Marilyn's phone number, and together they organized 3 weeks of groceries and suppers delivered to Ty's apartment. I know Anna started it because she is a terrible liar, and I asked her directly. By the end of that first week, there was some small kindness waiting almost every day. Banana bread, a card, a thermos of coffee. At home, people I knew only by their mailbox names were quietly filling Ty's freezer and leaving diapers by his door. Somebody bought Ty a new car seat and left it outside his apartment with the receipt taped to the box. The Dooley kids, 3 of whom were grown and gone, pooled their money and paid the first month of Nora's hospital copay. Ordell Kuchera, who had told the whole gas station that the mail lady thought he was dead, was standing at his box on a Tuesday in a Carhartt coat with his hat in his hands, and he did not say one word. He just stood there and let me see him standing there. Then he said, "I took groceries over to the little one's dad. You checked on me that time. I was ugly about it. I've thought about it since." I have kept the mail route arithmetic on that year because I am the kind of person who does. 94 households on rural Route 2. 61 of them found some way to help us. And this is what I could not get over, and what I still cannot. I did not know most of them. Not really. I knew their rhythm. I knew that the Novak driveway washes out. I knew the flag was up. I had spent 20 years being the same face at the same hour, and I had thought that was a very small thing. And it turned out that being the same face at the same hour for 20 years is not a small thing at all. It is nearly the definition of a large thing out here. Loretta Wicks was right, by the way. It does not go away. It does get carryable. I stayed 2 more years and I retired at 53, earlier than I meant to, because Ty got a job in Kettleman and needed somebody to have Nora after preschool, and because I wanted to. The last day was a Wednesday in June, and the route did something to me that I am still not entirely over. They came out to the boxes. Not all 94, that would be a fairy tale, and I am not going to hand you a fairy tale. But it was somewhere north of 50 at their mailboxes, spread over 81 miles and about 4.5 hours, in the order I had always driven them, because somebody had thought that through. Marilyn Hoffman had a foil pan. Anna Ozuna had her whole family lined up on the gravel. The girl from the Dooleys, who is a physician's assistant in Ames now, drove 2 hours to stand at a mailbox she has not lived at in 18 years. And on the corner where the gravel meets the county road, in front of a small white house with an iron windmill that has not turned since before I was born, Denise Nelson was standing at her father's box. Arvid died the year before, at 90, in the hospital in Des Moines with his daughter there. Denise had the house on the market, and she was standing at that mailbox on my last day holding a cardboard box, and when I rolled down the window, she was already crying, which made 2 of us. She said, "He told me in the hospital the second night on the pain medication, and I don't think he ever knew he told me." I did not say anything. She said, "You never told a soul, all those years. I asked around after, and nobody in this county knows. He had years of walking down that walk with his chin up and nobody looking at him funny, and you gave him that. He never could have said any of this to you, so I'm saying it." In the box was the weather vane off the top of that iron windmill. He had taken it down himself in the 90s when the bearings seized, and it had been in his shop ever since, on a nail, with a coffee can of hardware sitting next to it. It is on a post in my front yard now. It turns. Now, here is what happened next, because there is a little more, and it is the part I like. I am 61 years old. Nora is 10, and she is a hurricane, and she has her mother's specific laugh, which is a thing I was not prepared for and would not trade. The woman who took Route 2 after me is named Brittany Voss, and she is 34, and she was terrified of that route for about 6 weeks. I rode with her for a week, the way Delmar Boyd rode with me, and I told her about the Novak culvert and the 2 dogs and the rotted posts and the coffee can of sand. And on the last day, in the parking lot, with the engine running, I told her the thing. I said, "You'll have the boxes down in a month. It'll take you about a year to learn the lights." She said she did not know what that meant. I said, "You will. And Brittany, before you look at anything else in the morning, look at the porch lights. That's the whole job. The mail is the reason they let you drive down the road." She got it faster than I did. 2 years in, she found a man out on the north leg who had been having a stroke in his kitchen since about 4 in the morning, and she called it in. And she has never once told anybody who it was, and I have never asked her. There is a little roadside pantry at the corner of the county road now, on the corner by the windmill, a wooden box on a post with a plexiglass door where people leave what they have and take what they need. Cans mostly, diapers sometimes, in the winter, hats. The neighbors built it the year I retired, and they put a piece of engraved plastic on the front of it, and I asked them to take my name off, and they refused, and Marilyn Hoffman told me to my face that it was not up to me. So it says my name on it, which I am still not comfortable with, and underneath, in smaller letters, it says, "Check the lights." People who did not grow up here read that and think it means something poetic. It does not. It is an instruction. It means, look at the house. So that is the story. 22 years, 81 miles a day, 94 boxes, 4 times I am glad I paid attention, and 1 long February night on a concrete pad on the south side of a house. If you are lying there tonight thinking that nobody notices you, that you are the same face at the same hour, and it does not amount to anything, I would like you to consider the possibility that you are wrong in the same way I was wrong. Somebody has your rhythm memorized. They would notice if it broke. That is not a small thing. That is nearly the whole thing. Sleep well tonight. And if you have got a light on out there, that is all right too. Somebody is going by in the morning. If this one kept you company, a like helps this find the next person who cannot sleep, and there is another story waiting for you if you subscribe. And tell me something down in the comments, because I do wonder about the people listening in the dark. Who is the person in your life who noticed something about you before you said a word, and did you ever get to thank them? Drop your state and your age while you are there. I will see you in the next one.